Cool. The effect of resilience in addressing climate change. So the investigative question I started with was, how does resilience lead to the disregard of animals and other privileged people in relation to climate change? My thesis I chose was climate change significantly impacts inhabitants of large cities, yet the general public is generally indifferent, lacking the awareness of the effect of these events on the less fortunate, choosing resilience over change. "2021 was the hottest summer ever recorded, followed by 2022, which was the third hottest. People use air conditioning to protect themselves from heat waves, and this can lead people to think that it's not that hot. Because most Americans adapt to severe heat events by turning on their air conditioning, they lack the awareness of these events on the less fortunate. Now I'm going to connect to one of the pieces of the stimulus material, urban evolution. But before I talk about the remarkable evolution happening in cities, we need to examine the artificial conditions that we have created. Some unique characteristics of cities that make it a hotter place to live are paved and dark surfaces, densely populated large buildings, lack of vegetation and green spaces, and polluted air from factories and vehicles. All of these factors contribute to the urban heat island effect. City temperatures begin being significantly higher than their nearby rural counterparts. In the cities, daytime can be from 1 to 7 degrees higher, nighttime temperature can be 2 to 5 degrees higher, and the largest difference can be as great as 22 degrees higher. As a result of this increase in heat, inhabitants of these heat islands are being forced to adapt and evolve. Sarah Diamond, an evolutionary ecologist at Case Western Reserve University, stated that cities are kind of key for understanding responses to global climate change. You can step through time. You can say, this city is going to be the global climate warming that we should expect to see by 2050, 2070, or 2100. Some urban factors that breed evolution are city conditions, like habitat fragmentation, pollution, and competition with humans and other animals. The presence of humans, creatures in cities and suburbs are genetically evolving to deal with the forced omnipresence of humans, and natural selection. Although there are a few species that are lucky enough to live through the artificial conditions, there's a much larger pool which is unable to adapt to their new environment. Some species are genetically evolving to adapt to cities in their environment. Birds in some European countries have begun to sing at a higher pitch. Rural populations of water fleas and ants have been found with a higher heat tolerance. Brown rats in New York City have developed longer noses and shorter teeth to digest human waste. And city mice are able to eat fatty foods that humans drop their way. Poor neighborhoods are hotter than the wealthy neighborhoods by an average of 6 degrees Fahrenheit. This is due to the absence of the shade of trees and green space, paired with a much larger, denser population of people. Increasing CO2 emissions from nearby factories also contribute to the urban heat island effect. Many urban poor are unable to afford air conditioning, and the heat makes health conditions worse, like heart disease and asthma. Heat stresses the cardiovascular system. High heat and humidity can trigger chronic asthma and obstructive pulmonary disease. Now I'm going to talk about my second piece of stimulus material, the dark side of resilience. Humans are the most resilient species on the planet, but unlike animals, humans are able to use technology to adapt. Too much of our inherent human resilience can result in complicity. Instead of advocating for long-term changes to reduce global warming, humans choose air conditioning. Derek Luss describes this phenomenon as false hope syndrome. Even when past behaviors clearly suggest that the goals are unlikely to be attained, overconfidence and unfounded degree of optimism can lead people to waste time. Americans are so resilient in sticking to their way of life that they choose to wait for somebody else to change their actions to fix their problems. Over 50% of Americans think that new technologies can solve global warming, and most Americans rarely or never discuss global warming. Only 21% of Americans say they're very worried about climate change, or extreme heat in their local area. My proposed solution is to provide education on our effect on the climate and to mandate a program for the K-12 curriculum. Some of the pros I came up with are the ability to influence environmental attitudes and behavior at a young age, helping students develop green skills, reducing the spread of misinformation. Some of the cons of school programming are cost. Some schools don't have the resources to teach kids this extra material. And another drawback is the possibility of triggering climate anxiety and creating panic instead of change.
Jack, what evidence did you gather you didn't include, and why did you choose not to include?
There were many more detailed examples of species like owls in Argentina developing a higher cognitive ability, which may have been genetically involved, but I didn't see this relating to climate change or city evolution because it was like cognitive ability and not a physical adaptation.
Okay, thank you. What additional questions emerged from your research, and why are they important?
How can we change the general and public's attitudes and behavior about climate change if they aren't seeing or feeling the impact of climate change? So questions like these can lead to further research and find answers and solutions about how can we inform people about their actions.
Okay, thank you. Another round of applause.